see Dr. Burke, and it's super sunny wherever you're at.
Super tiny, Hannah.
Super tiny?
Super tiny.
I think I've never been called before. They're working on it.
Oh, that's Aaron in front of the camera. Hi, Aaron.
Well, the
Well, the video is fine. It's just that, you know, the whole room is in one frame. So obviously it's, everybody looks small.
Okay, so it's 3 p.m. Right now, it looks like we have Dr. Burke, Megan Smith, Representative Clear. Myself, I'm Hannah Carlock, the chair of the Choice Board. Do we have any other board members online?
This is Beth Schoenfeld.
We're going to give it about another minute or so to see if anybody else joins us. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started to be mindful of everybody's time. Once again, I'm Hannah Carlock with the Choice Board. We don't have too many here in attendance for the Choice Board, which is good. Okay, we still have people online. So we have Dr. Burke online. We have Megan Smith online, Representative Clear. Did I miss anybody else online? As a part of the Choice Board.
Yep, this is Beth Schoenfeld. I'm online.
Thank you. All righty, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. We do not have a quorum, so we will not be approving our minutes from the November meeting. But I will just go ahead and jump right in and kick it off to Aaron for our membership update.
Everyone, this is Erin Wright. I just have a quick update on the Choice Board membership. Ellen Kerr resigned after the November meeting. She was our geriatrician representative. Currently, we have 4 vacancies on the Choice Board. One is for a citizen nominated by 2 or more organizations that represent senior citizens and have statewide membership. 2, a provider of choice services. 3, a licensed physician, physician assistant, or registered nurse who specializes either in the field of gerontology or in the field of disabilities. And then the 4th vacancy is for a home care services advocate or policy specialist nominated by 2 or more organizations, associations, or non-governmental agencies that advocate on behalf of home care consumers. These vacancies are posted on our website. Really use some assistance in recruiting individuals. We do not have any names pending with the governor's office to fill these vacancies. As Hannah mentioned, a quorum is 6. There are 15 members on the board for our non-voting members. So if anybody has any questions or names, feel free to send them my way.
Thanks, Erin. All right, up next is our main presentation today. We are getting an update on the MLTSS and what's happening with that at the state level.
Good afternoon, Dr. Burke. It's been so long. Hey, so the band is back together. We are preparing to present a version of what we talked about this morning in the Commission on Aging. So we are going, my name's Allison Taylor. I'm the Director of the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. We are prepared to present to the Choice Board. Maybe, like the latest happenings, I would say, of our transition to manage long-term services and supports. And I've got a couple team members here to actively present. We actually have a full room, though, of additional folks who are working on this project. And I guess I just wanted to open and say how important and thrilled we are to be in this space with the Choice Board. We are committed to partnering and being available as much as possible in this space and then offline and in separate meetings or meeting with your own individual organizations and in your groups and the circles that you might run in. So we really look forward to partnering. We appreciate the level of engagement with Division of Aging. We really are a team in this. So we're excited to present. I will stick around and actually probably do like the last slide or two of this deck. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Shannon Effler to kick off the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. So I'm Shannon Effler. Good to see you all. I've attended the Choice Board in the past just as a listener, so you might have seen my face. But I am the Director of Care Programs for the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. So I'll be presenting today alongside with Darcy Tower, who is our Director of Provider Experience in OMPP, and Allison, who introduced herself. So I joined the state about 2 years ago and have been closely involved in the design and now the final procurement, readiness review, and implementation of MLTSS. So prior to joining the state, I worked at the Regan Street Institute here in Indy, where I primarily worked in the Center for Aging Research, where I led projects tied to nursing home improvement, end of life, and palliative care. So I am a social worker by trade and super passionate about aging and our older adults. So it's really an honor to be part of the leadership of this program because I do know and believe that it will positively impact our Hoosiers. Nationally and also here in Indiana, we have data and evidence that managed care works. Those Medicaid members who are in fee-for-service experience lower health outcomes than those who are able to access managed care. So I do believe that MLTSS will have a positive impact. Okay, next slide, which is the agenda. So what we're gonna do today is we're going to announce the name of the program, which is a huge success in itself. Really excited about that. Kind of go over the roles in OMPP that are tied to managing and running this program, to touch base on where we're at and with the timeline, talk about readiness review and implementation and really define what do those things mean. Also talk a little bit about MCE reporting oversight and then service coordination as it relates to the AAAs and the MCEs. And then we will open it up for discussion. Next slide. So we have a name. The name of the program is now Indiana Pathways for Aging, Pathways for short. So we named this with public input. So the community, stakeholders, providers, state staff all provided input into what our name for this program would be. So we're super excited about it because for those of you that may not know, while a significant portion of the program's participants will be receiving long-term services and supports, not all will be. This program is for those who are 60 years and older and are eligible for Medicaid. So we anticipate having about 100,000 members in the program, and about 40,000 of those members will be receiving LTSS either in a nursing home or through the home and community-based waiver. So the reason I'm tying that to the name is that I feel like this name really helps to comprehensively define the program rather than limiting it to a focus only on long-term services and supports. Okay, next slide. So this slide is a bit busy, and so I don't expect you to be able to read anything on there and know everyone's name and everyone's title. But I put it up here for a reason to really emphasize that we have a strong team working on the implementation of this program. Many of them are in the room right now, many are not. We have a compliance team, we have programs team, we now have a managed care team, specifically around just directing managed care practices within OMPP. But we also work across teams. So we have a strong clinical team, we have a reimbursement team, we have provider services. And there are folks on those teams who are all also tied to this that we work with. Also, this slide doesn't really reflect truly all of the collaboration that's going on with this transition. We work day in and day out. OMPP works day in and day out with the Division of Aging, with DDRS on the transition of this waiver. So just really wanted to emphasize, and I'm sorry for those who are joining virtually. I really wanted you to be able to meet some of our team members today who are in the room, but hopefully that can happen at a later meeting in the future. Okay, next slide. So this slide is on the overall timeline. So in 2021, we really focused on designing the program and started to draft the RFP and really collaboratively design across divisions. What is this program going to look like? In 2022, we moved into really focusing on collecting information on what is needed to implement the program. So identifying specific tasks and action items that we needed to complete, and also setting the stage for the future awarded MCEs to execute readiness review with them. No problem, welcome. And then now we're in 2023, we hope to announce the awarded MCEs in the very near future. And then we will move into quickly onboarding them. So quickly thereafter of award, we move into onboarding. After onboarding, we move into readiness review. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I really call readiness review the way that we put the MCEs through a ringer, right? We are really asking them to fully step up to the plate to everything that they proposed that they would do, and holding them accountable to doing it, and also holding them accountable to everything that's in our scope of work, our contracts with them. So it is a very rigorous process. 2023 will be the readiness review for the MCEs, but it's also the readiness for all of us as we gear up for the launch of this program, right? So internally within FSSA, with the community, with providers, with CMS, it's readiness for all of us. And then in 2024, we will be going live with the program. Throughout this whole process and certainly into the future, we will be working actively with stakeholders and incorporating their feedback and input along the way. We have a Pathways co-design group that meets monthly. The participants on that are stakeholders, advocacy organizations, providers, did I say trade orgs? Trade orgs. Lots of different folks who have really been on this journey with us from day one, providing input. So as we were crafting the scope of work, which, I mean, the bottom line of the scope of work is that's our program, right? That's how we're going to operate the program, providing input on what's in there. What do we need to tweak? What do we need to add? And it was a really amazing experience to go through that with them. And now that we're entering onboarding and readiness review implementation, now we're saying things like, hey, we now have a draft of our reporting manual. Can you give us feedback on it? What's missing from it? What would you like to see? Again, really engaging them. We're drafting a care and service coordination manual for the MCEs. There will be an opportunity for that group to provide input and feedback on those type of items. Okay, next slide. So really, you can kind of tell there's a theme today of really focusing on stakeholder engagement and involvement in this program from day one. When I joined 2 years ago, I was really blown away by the state's dedication to incorporating stakeholders into this. So just wanted to highlight, this slide says that we've had 300 plus meetings with stakeholders. I'm sure it's closer to 400 at this point. 92% of stakeholder considerations have been fully or partially incorporated into the final scope of work that was released. So that, I mean, we had a very robust log that listed each item that stakeholders told us they wanted to see. And then we went through each and every item, either incorporating it fully or partially, or providing justification as to why we can't. For example, it could be against Indiana code or something like that, that we couldn't move forward with it. So again, we have really engaged stakeholders and will continue to do that as we enter the next year and post go live of the program. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Darcy Tower, who is going to talk about engagement that we've been doing with consumers and providers.
Shannon, hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see all of you. As Shannon said, my name is Darcy Tower, and I am the Director of Provider Experience with Indiana Medicaid. I came to Medicaid in the spring of 2022, but prior to that, I was with the Division of Aging, working on the aged and disabled waiver and the traumatic brain injury waiver, and the providers and the consumers of those services. For the new Pathways program, one of the great opportunities we have is another path of stakeholder engagement, which is engaging the folks who render long-term services and support, so our providers, and then those who receive services through long-term services and supports. And we began this work in 2021, the summer of 2021, and we had some help in what we were doing. We engaged with the Indiana Minority Health Coalition. We brought on a partner of Advancing States who has done this work in other states to help us with lessons that they've learned so that we don't to recreate the wheel. And so we also started an advisory group, and it was called the Older Hoosier Caregiver Advisory Group. And it's made up of a couple of people also in this room. The ARC has joined the advisory group. Dr. Burke is on our advisory group. And we work with this group to share materials and ideas for how we would like to engage providers and individuals across the state. We get their feedback and then we incorporate it into the work that we're doing. We also share feedback with the advisory group based on what we've heard from both providers and consumers. And so in 2021, we had a bit of a resurgence of COVID. And so we couldn't go in person like we wanted to engage folks. So we did the virtual option. We still had, I think, a good turnout virtually of over 800 individuals. And AARP was an incredible partner in helping us identify those folks. We also were engaging providers in 2021. And we really wanted to start the conversation with providers of what does this look like to move your agency from a fee-for-service system into managed care. And when we started, we quickly learned from providers who said to us, hey, you're moving a little too fast. Let's back it up. And so that's what we did in the fall of 2022. So we engaged with providers around how the system looks today versus how it's going to look tomorrow. And so we broke down those pieces for providers. It seemed to go really well. And the other part of 2022, at the same time we're working with providers, we're also going around the state, north, south, east, west, meeting in person with individuals and with caregivers. So we're talking to them about things like, how do they access the system today? What are the services like? What do they like about the system, and what would they like to see change? Because we don't want to put something that's not working in today's system into a system tomorrow. We want to fix it before it moves. And so that's what we've been doing in 2022. And in 2023, we'll be back this spring and continuing on to help people, consumers know, what happens when we select plans and what should they be doing. For example, if communication is coming to consumers, is it coming in a green envelope so they know, hey, this is the information your plan, that you've selected is going to be in, make sure you look for it. So it's continuing that education. And with providers, we're really going to focus in on contracting in this spring. And so we'll walk alongside them. We will partner with the MCE, with the provider, so that they feel supported during the contracting process. And if there are any, in your communities, if there are stakeholders who are interested in talking with us, we will come to you. We've been to different housing communities. We've been to libraries. We've been to adult days, and we are happy to go anywhere and talk to anyone. So I'm happy to take any questions, or I will go ahead and turn it over to Shannon.
Okay, next slide. So as I mentioned before, I want to define readiness review. What does that really mean? So after Q1 of 2023, this year, when the MCE awards are announced, the state will begin to test and validate in phases whether each awarded MCE can do what they said they can do. So notably, during this test period, the state does not have signed contracts with the MCEs, right? So they're operating at risk. They are proving to us that they can do the work. So that's on purpose, so that anytime we were to feel like they've already gone through a very rigorous evaluation process to select the MCEs, right? But if at any time we felt like they could not operate this program well, then we could cut our ties with them, right? So they do not sign contracts until right before go live of the program. So probably historically, we haven't shared the story of readiness review very well. We do this for our other programs. We have 3 managed care programs that we currently operate, and I'll talk about our success with those. But really, it's a systematic, large-scale, program-specific review conducted in advance of member enrollment. We cover several things, many things tied to the MCE's practices, including staffing, policies, processes, documents, subcontracts, system capabilities, provider networks to ensure the health plan is prepared in advance of the new contract go live. It really is an all hands on deck for our Medicaid staff. All the teams that I mentioned, and probably some that I forgot to mention, are all involved in this because we have our programmatic and compliance team. Again, a lot of those folks are here today, but not all. But we have subject matter experts in different niches that we really rely on. So for example, our clinical team, they're going to be reviewing all of the policies and procedures around care coordination, service coordination, disease management. We have our provider services team that's going to be reviewing all of the items related to how is the engagement with providers going to work? What are the documents and materials that they're developing to engage with providers? Any and all materials that are created by an MCE that go to a member or a provider has to be submitted to OMPP for review and feedback on it. So we're looking for specific criteria that's outlined in the scope of work, but we're also ensuring that it's in line with FSSA's mission and vision. And we often provide feedback on that. And then the MCE has to resubmit after they've incorporated that feedback for final approval. And that's an iterative process. with readiness review also includes conducting desk reviews of the documentation and what we call on-site demonstrations, where we ask the MCE to demonstrate to us that they can do this. So they show us that we look into their systems, their portals. We'll also be conducting secret shopper calls. We will be doing role playing with them to ensure that their care coordination staff are equipped and meeting the standards that we have. We're really going to be thinking outside of the box here to make sure that we're comfortable with them operating this program. And as I mentioned, so those subject matter experts are also involved in reviewing every document. So demonstrations really continue until we're confident that that MCE can go live. So it could be that we have a demonstration and we unearth things through that process, right? And we see, ooh, we need improvement here. They've got to re-demonstrate it and re-demonstrate it until it meets our standard. And that's where the state is also supplying technical assistance to the MCEs to make sure that things are clear about what we are expecting prior to go live. So back to that, we have conducted and successful readiness reviews. We follow a similar process every time, and we've had consistent results of success. We just you don't hear about it, right? It doesn't come out in public, or we're not screaming it on the top of a mountain to you guys. But for example, we just wrapped up our HIP and Hoosier HealthWise readiness review. Through that process, OMPP developed 193 requirements to validate. So meaning that the MCEs had to pass each of those 193 requirements. Our team in OMPP and across FSSA reviewed 7,474 MCE documents through that process. This included resubmissions of documents that were found to not be compliant on the initial submission. It also included MCE policies and procedures to validate that the processes are compliant with the program requirements. We conducted 28 on-site audits with the MCEs, which equated to around 95 hours. This will also be a process of working, like as we're going through readiness review for pathways and implementation, we'll also be working with providers and with AAAs as they engage with the MCEs during that process. So we expect to be a facilitator. And I think Darcy talked a little bit about that as well, to prepare them for this new environment, because we do acknowledge that this will be a change. So I talked about readiness review, but what happens before is an extensive onboarding process. So this is to ensure that they're ready to go live, meaning they are very clear in the state's expectations around this program. So we anticipate awarding 3 to 4 MCEs. It is possible that some of those MCEs are going to be folks that we don't have current contracts with, right? And so we need to set the stage for them about what are we expecting them? What is Indiana's standard when it comes to delivering managed care? Some other examples of what happens during onboarding is we work with the state eligibility systems, the state data warehouse, to ensure that the MCE has connectivity to those and that they can access that information and share data well. We will have technical meetings in order to ensure that the MCEs are fully understand and can process the data. The FSSA team conducts an average of 30 hours of technical meetings as well as trainings during a typical onboarding of a procurement. Questions around the data are reviewed and resolved during the technical sessions. And the sessions are also utilized to verify data is received and loaded by the MCEs. We have orientation meetings with the different departments and divisions of FSSA with the MCE. So that's an opportunity, for the Division of Aging to meet with the MCE and say, this is what we're expecting of you, and this is what we want to see. It's an opportunity for DMHA, for DDRS, all of them to meet and really educate across FSSA what are our expectations. It's also an opportunity for the MCEs to ask their own questions. about, hey, if we down the line, we experience this, who do we go to? Who's our contact? How do we work this out? We'll share historical best practices with them, lessons learned. And then MCEs are provided all of the content that we share after the orientation session, so they can bring that back to their staff and train whoever else needs to be trained within the MCE. We'll have progress meetings on a weekly basis, but then as we get up to go live, those may increase. The frequency may become more than just once a week. And that's really our ability to communicate to them where we think the MCE is at on their progress of actually having an established contract with us. It's also the MCE's opportunity to provide feedback to us and ask us questions, and just so we're all on the same page. So that is really onboarding. Next slide. So we have onboarding, then readiness review, and then we've signed the contracts, right? And we're live with the program. I want to assure you that our oversight and compliance does not stop then, right? Yes, it keeps going and going. And we do that with our current programs, right? Where we have a holistic compliance program where we are proactively auditing aspects of their services that they're delivering. So unlike commercial insurance or Medicare, the state maintains ongoing responsibility and oversight of the programs. So once we validate what they said they do in the RFP and what's in the scope of work, and they're meeting our expectations, then readiness review just turns into full compliance monitoring after go live. If at any point we identify, so we're go live and we're post go live and we have contracts with an MCE, at any point that they aren't meeting expectations, we can take corrective action with them. And that can look like several different things. It depends on the issue that's identified. So we can put them on a corrective action plan where there's proactive monitoring by our contract compliance officers and team. We can assess for liquidated damages, which means fining the MCE and collecting that money from them. We can also stop assigning members to them. That has a huge financial impact on them, right? Because that's how they receive a capitated rate for each member that they have. And then if anything was egregious to the point of we needed to terminate a contract with them, we have the full ability to do that. That's at the discretion of the state. So that's obviously something that we don't want to have to do, but we certainly can do it. And once we go live with the program and we are doing ongoing compliance, this is also an opportunity where we will be having active feedback loops with providers and with the AAAs to hear what concerns are they having with the MCEs, if any, right? So that then we can dig into it. So every year we establish our compliance program, and we have different items that we want to dig into, but we're also flexible enough to pivot if there's an issue that pops up. Right? If we're getting feedback from members, from caregivers, from providers, from AAAs around a certain issue, then we pivot and we start digging into that, right? To make sure that we're addressing it as quickly as we can. Okay, next slide. So the MCE reporting manual that I mentioned earlier is it's one of the ways that we ensure that they're compliant with our program. So we create a manual that has many different fields on it of data that we want the MCE to submit to us on a regular basis. Currently, with our 3 programs, most of the reports that we receive from MCEs come in on a quarterly basis. For pathways, when we go live, we're looking at more collecting the data on a weekly basis and having a team really analyze that proactively and take action if there's anything that we're seeing that isn't serving our members, providers, caregivers well. All right, next slide. And program performance is holistic, right? So it is about MCE performance. It's about our performance, FSSA, right? Our ability to really guide and steer the MCEs in a way that has the most positive impact for the community. It's about member outcomes, increasing health outcomes where we can for members, and then also ensuring that our members are satisfied with the program. Next slide. Here is a sample. It is certainly not all comprehensive of certain MCE's reports that we collect. So for example, service authorizations, assessments, how many assessments are they getting done? So for example, the health needs screen tool, are they getting that done in the time set forth in the scope of work? Providing on an ongoing basis their provider network, what does that look like? Have they for some reason lost certain providers? Why is that happening? Critical incidents that are happening for our members, digging into that. Is the MCE working with providers from a quality perspective to improve quality for providers that are having a lot of critical incidents? A lot is covered in that. And again, this is just a sample. So we are in the process, and Larisha's here, and she's our director of managed care. She's working on drafting the pathways MCE reporting manual. Once we have a draft of that, we will be working with the pathways co-design group so that they can view that and provide feedback and input on that. I'm going to pass it to Allison now to talk about service coordination.
Thank you. I assume no questions or comments on the prior content. Feel free to, well, I defer to commission chairs, but if there are, please stop. I've been keeping an eye on the chat. But again, Allison Taylor, for anyone that has joined since we started, I'm the Director of Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. And just to kind of sum up, Shannon was describing, I would say, probably more of a technical and compliance view of how we manage care and what management and operations of the Pathways program will look like. And so I hope that gave you a flavor of the level of dedication and expertise that the team has, and how significantly the team is preparing in terms of readiness and preparation. Hopefully you heard themes of really long runways, lots of levers and tools and evaluation to make sure we're ready to go live. And then the second we go live, we're evaluating, are we still ready? It's always an evaluation of continued readiness. One piece special that before I jump to service coordination, I do want to mention to kind of, add to or complement the story or arc that Shannon presented. For this program in particular, we're layering on top sort of a data surveillance plan right at that when we're getting closer to go live, through go live, and then into post go live. Shannon mentioned, we have the very intensive upfront process, and then we transition to compliance, which is a continuous and ongoing thing. We will have a special data surveillance process where we are sort of in a SWAT team kind of circumstance, evaluating really important health metrics to make sure that the program, we are really meeting member needs, and we are all the handoffs that need to be happening are happening. And so that is a super intentional kind of extra investment that we're going to make sure we don't have any, or can quickly adjust and pivot and solve for any kind of rollout challenges that we might have. Certainly learning from lessons learned of prior programs. Shannon mentioned lots of success on the managed care rollout side. I personally do recognize and kind of take stock in the NEMT transportation broker rollout from several years ago. So taking lessons learned from that and really doubling down on efforts involving long runway, lots of, thoughtful upfront stakeholder engagement, having providers, members, families, and caregivers be a part of development of the program, and then also involved in the monitoring and observation of the program, because they're the ones that are going to help us know if the health of the program and making sure we are on sound footing. So I just wanted to reiterate that. But so I want to jump forward. I think well, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to zoom out, maybe just to confirm, kind of talking, I guess, to this group and this group. Representative Clear, hey, did you want to say something?
Hi, Allison. Yeah, I saw your slide that said questions. Is it time for questions?
Oh. No, we were just seeing if you were paying attention. No, I'm just kidding. I think they accidentally jumped to questions. I have one more slide. Do you want me to run
Oh, okay.
through it?
No, I had my finger on the trigger there, and as soon as I saw it was question time,
Now I can mentally prepare for what's coming. This is good. I need
I'm
runway.
going to mute myself until you're ready for me.
Sure, I'm gonna talk for, how long is this meeting? We're just kidding. So I was gonna zoom out real quick, just in the context of broader long-term services and supports reform. So again, I just want to frame it, and then I come back to service coordination, because just to confirm this, we're talking specifically about this managed care program. It is a part of a broader FSSA effort to change the way we serve aging Hoosiers. We have the stated goal of having new HCBS being 75% of the services that folks in the program receive. So rebalancing, we're on the lower, the worst end of that. We're also, our goal is to increase LTSS expenditures to at least 50%. So those are like the stated number goals. We have a menu of like 7+ efforts that I would say are modular, but also stacking, that all kind of work together to create this new offering and improved offering for aging Hoosiers. Those involve expedited waiver eligibility. We're here talking about managed care, but there's others. There's linking payments to outcomes. Right now, we're really digging in with the nursing facilities to link their payments to quality, including lots of focus on staffing. And so that is an area we're going to see a lot of payoff. Data integration, I mentioned the data surveillance, but we'll also have a long-term data plan. So these aging individuals have a care record that is transportable across the continuum. And so we can really see a person holistically. We have a direct service worker statewide work plan that, again, through many months of engagement with the community, we are looking for ways to really invest, develop, grow, train up, and support the direct service workforce that we really need to make sure we're meeting aging needs. We also, just a couple of other, we have a work group that's focused solely on home health. We're calling it a home health roadmap, but really starting at square one with the home health industry, and specifically to take a look at the myriad of issues from administrative, kind of regulatory, policy, and reimbursement challenges, aging. And I will say there's a bit of that complex pediatric patient in that home health bucket too, but those are areas that we're focused on. And then also waiver transitions and collaboration. So really, in a way, you probably have never seen DA, DDRS, and OMPP. Those are the short form for Division of Aging, Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services and Medicaid, working together collaboratively on these and trying to get our waivers to be really intuitive and person-centered. So that's kind of like the broader context to zoom out on service coordination. So this is, I would say, we're kind of at this point zooming back in and focusing on, and I go back to like all of this stuff needs to work together to have the impact that we're really looking for. And so I want to talk a little bit about service coordination and the role that it has in this broader context. This is, and I'm going to talk through some of the information on the slide, but this kind of captures some of the detail that we've been talking with service coordination entities, AAAs, care management companies over the last 12+ months. And starting from kind of the overall vision, as we've discussed, we're moving to a MLTSS or an Indiana Pathways to manage care for those 60 and up. That's about 100,000 individuals, 100,000 aging individuals in Indiana. And when we moved to MLTSS, Shannon mentioned it, the value of MLTSS is that these individuals now have one single accountable coordinating care entity there. We pay them to manage the whole person. And so that is when we turn on all the levers that we talked about. Shannon talked about all of the ways that we make sure performance is strong, that we know that we can get better health outcomes because we have that entity that's responsible versus kind of current environment where we have individuals navigating a complicated system sort of without that support in many spaces. And so the goal is to move to have really consistent service coordination experience. We talked a little bit this morning, Dr. Burke, in the earlier Commission on Aging meeting. And you are in, you didn't open, or you haven't said this, but we know where you are. You're in your car, but you're also in Arizona. And you talked about the fact that, you know, we are different than Arizona. In Arizona is the one state in the country that was born Medicaid managed care. All other states started fee for service and have over time worked their way nationally. About 75% is managed care. 75% of Medicaid is managed care. We are not Arizona. And so for us, our solution really needs to be Indiana specific. We identified really a value in recognizing the significance, importance, and value of local organizations and providing service coordination, which is definitely, it's a boots on the ground, community-based relational aspect of this service coordination. So we wanted to develop a program that honored the local, but had the accountability and really leaned on that managed care piece. Just a couple of information or details that fed into some of this work. We did have, and I think Darcy mentioned some of this, we did have community conversations over the last 12 plus months, asking again, what was your experience? How are you experiencing a myriad of things? I'm losing my voice this week. I think this is my 5th speaking, so I apologize for my squeaking. Maybe it's endearing, maybe it's annoying. I'm sorry. But we did ask for feedback and how are you experiencing, service coordination, or how are you receiving these services? We heard lots of things. We heard really value that local coordination, AAA's, care coordination entities, service coordination companies have just a lot of experience and a lot of good relationships built there, but also honor maybe some inconsistent experience that wasn't the case, entirely across the board. So other stakeholders really wanting to honor, but we really want to see this pushed up. We want to see consistency, increased performance, and accessibility. Some feedback certainly that not all processes were person-centered or as person-centered as we would want them to be when it comes to service coordination. We know that's really important and a goal going forward. We also heard that not always were folks or members, families, caregivers really aware of the full array of services that might be available to them in this service coordination space. And I think kind of universally feedback was, we really want to minimize the handoffs, the trade-offs that can kind of happen when you have a kind of a disjointed system. We talked a little bit this morning with one of the Commission on Aging members specifically was talking about inconsistent, the challenge when there is multiple sort of service coordination or handoffs that happen with different care managers. So really just trying to honor and understand. I mean, it's complicated, but we wanted to take all of that information in. To Darcy's point, we have the opportunity going forward to do all of this better. And so how do we take the really good stuff and then improve on the other pieces that need to be improved on? And so we really tried to create something that had the accountability in performance, but also balanced, runway, timing, inclusion and opportunity. So you'll see on the right, sort of this role, and we will be adjusting the slide. This is about service coordination entities. There are AAAs do this, but so do care management companies or service coordination entities. We talked a little bit about that this morning, that, we'll adjust that slide to really reflect, this is not just AAA, but this is for those entities that do that work. Our plan, and this is reflected in the scope of work that Shannon mentioned, it is the contract that we write to managed care entities. We shared this with stakeholders as we were going through and tried to incorporate as much feedback as we could from stakeholders. But the plan would be to require MCEs, because again, ultimately they're responsible. They're doing the whole person care thing. That is what we're paying them for. But we are requiring them to subcontract at least 50% of that HCBS membership with these local service coordination entities for at least 2 years. And we did do a lot of research, took a look at other states that have done this and found that to be kind of a nice balance, but that I would tell, and that's not it. That's not where it ends. I want to say in the Indiana way, we really want to have a lot of build up so that these entities are ready and primed and in a good position. So there's a lot of safeguards that we put into the scope of work, and that will be managing with the Division of Aging. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. We will, starting now and very soon, be working on developing a standard contract with specific performance measures. So we want the AAAs, the service coordination entities, those coordinating entities that want to remain in the service coordination space. We're going to all work together to develop the rules of the road and create benchmarks that will help us meet our increased expectations of performance in this space. We're going to provide technical assistance. We're not going to say, go figure it out with the MCEs. We're going to be actively engaged in helping to develop those benchmarks and working on practicing as we head into the new contract. If after 2 years, fast forward to, when the program's live, if an MCE would want to end that relationship with the service coordination entity, they would have to make a formal request to FSSA, and only upon our review and their demonstration that they made a good faith effort at coordinating. Jim, it's good to see you. That's all good. No, it's totally cool. And so basically they need to come to FSSA with formal requests. We will evaluate, we'll bring the parties in, and then really through a mediation of sorts, we will be involved and we'll assess and kind of help create the off ramp if that is indeed where things land. A couple of other supports. We, DA and OMPP specifically, will work with these service coordination providers to develop performance and benchmark. I mentioned in terms of contract, but I think there's a broader conversation to happen as well, just about performance expectations, what that looks like. And then Division of Aging specifically with our partnership will provide training and learning collaboratives to support AAAs and service coordinators as we really head into the space of having comprehensive, performance expectations that are consistent kind of across the spectrum. So ultimately, it's a balance, but one that we are really confident we think it will help us identify kind of that next level of performance. When we look nationally, we see that about 90% of AAAs who are in this contracted scenario remain contracted. I think that tells us that the health plans, they need local organizations, they rely on them. And so we want to we'll be working through technical assistance in a lot of our working meetings with the AAAs and service coordination entities to get them ready to kind of be in the seat of the authority. They're the local organization. We want them to be an attractive partner and in a really good spot, ready to kind of knock down performance, hit, and then, plow forward through performance expectations. So they're a valuable partner. And if the AAAs or service coordination entities want to be a part of that after that 2-year period, there's a nothing but like a no option but, because they'll be hitting all the performance marks. And then maybe a conversation for another day. I know really important in this space is the discussion about the non-Medicaid work. I know that is top of mind for Leslie and the Division of Aging. So really trying to invest in all aspects of this work that occurs on the coordination side, recognizing Medicaid is not all of it. But I don't think I can keep talking. I'm going to have to succumb to your question, Representative Clear. I think I'm done. We can move to the questions portion. Shannon, Darcy, myself, and the rest of the team are here. So that is it.
Allison, did you say it's time for my questions?
I did.
First of all, thanks for your last statement there regarding non-Medicaid activities. We've had a lot of discussions about that, and I appreciate you acknowledging the importance of that. I would just say that the timeliness of how that happens is also very important, so that we don't allow the AAAs to lose any of the capacity that they've developed. But I just wanted to ask with respect to the AAA's role. I think maybe for the last at least 2, maybe 3 or more meetings now, I've asked about the methodology for assigning case management, making sure that it's equitable for the AAAs and for everyone else. And then second, the reimbursement, making sure that the AAAs are fairly reimbursed for the case management services they're providing. And we had some discussion of that, I believe, at the last meeting, but it was still pretty murky as to how that was going to work. I think many of us are concerned that the AAAs, well, we certainly don't want the AAAs to be asked to do anything they're already doing for less money, and there needs to be an equitable basis from which they can negotiate more money, recognizing that everything is costing more. So if you could address those 2 areas, I'm hoping you can provide some more clarity beyond the previous discussion.
Yeah, get out of the murky. So I was not.
Forgive my voice.
Are you? Me too. Back at you. You have a thing too.
You didn't notice that I wasn't in Ways and Means to hear your presentation?
Yes, she did notice that.
I did notice that. No, I don't, the whole thing's a blur. I don't remember.
I was expecting a text message.
Well, okay. It's been a wild week. Okay. I probably ought to check in with you anyway. So, part of why I'm losing my voice, but yes, no, I remember now. No. Okay. So I hope you feel better. I think we're similarly well. And so let me take a shot. Leslie and I have had a couple conversations about this, let's start with reimbursement. I am personally open to the discussion. I understand what the concern. We don't want them to get paid less for doing what they are doing now. We've talked a little bit about the wrinkle or the thing here is that they are a subcontractor, not a provider. So that's a new sort of relationship for them. We are doing a little bit of evaluation to see what does it look like if we say don't pay less. I guess I just want to say I think we're looking into it. I am supportive of them not doing work that we don't want them to get paid less. We do expect, though, that requiring, mandating 50% of the work go to the AAAs, we do think they're going to be in a bit of a leveraging position, I think, to demand that and more. So we'll be working on business acumen work with the AAAs to really help them identify ways to make managed care work for them as an opportunity. But I will, as soon as we're kind of firm on how we could do that in contract and what that would look like, Representative Clear, I'd be glad to connect with you and of course the AAAs. We're going to have multiple meetings with AAAs here coming up, and we'll talk about that.
I just want it to be equitable and of course transparent. And as I mentioned, it's not about simply making sure they don't make less. As we engage in discussions in this legislative session about potential rate increases for countless categories of providers. I think they need to be there needs to be a recognition that they should be part of that discussion regardless of their technical classification as subcontractor or provider. They just need to be compensated fairly for the services they're providing.
Yeah, that's fair. Leslie, I'm looking at methodology for assigning case management equitably. I don't know if we have anything.
Shannon, I don't know if you might want to speak to that. I believe there's language in the scope that maybe we've talked about on that.
Is that
I
right?
don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, what is in the scope of work is that it would be based on a state supplied list of all of the current case management entities, independent case management entities, and the AAAs. And that list would be provided to the MCEs to do that. But that's the extent that I'm aware of.
So Representative Clear, I think we maybe can follow up on that one as well. And maybe we can provide you with the scope of work unless you've seen it. Okay, we'll get it to you, and then let's see if that is getting at and if you want to talk further, we can add it to this list on reimbursement, if that's okay.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds, and I think there are a lot of other folks who are interested in this as well. We just want to make sure, I'll use the term equitable again, that the assignment is going to be fair to everyone involved and not set up anyone for failure or give anyone an unfair advantage. And as you pointed out, Allison, we're not just talking about AAAs here. I think the issue of equitable assignment applies to everyone, or should apply to everyone who is doing case management.
Yeah, I think we can definitely talk about that in the spirit of what the definition of equitable assignment is, what we'd be looking at. I think our plan is to be actively engaged in the developing some of that would be performance metrics too. I think arguably we could have that be a lens that we view MCE performance, making sure there's an appropriately sort of balanced distribution. So we can definitely continue down that kind of line of oversight.
Thank you.
This is Joanne. I have a somewhat a related question. We have a number of older adults, I think, that have a rather long-standing relationship with the AAAs because they come in through the ADRCs. They may well go on to the choice program and then transition over eventually into managed long-term services and supports. I want to go rewind just a moment. When you referenced 100,000, who was included in that population?
So that 100,000 is those 60 and over. Who, that's it, right? Who are on Medicaid. And then if they get a level of care, there'll be those LTSS population. So it's
And that's 40,000.
Can you say that again?
Okay, you went from 100,000 to 40,000. Could you clarify that for me, please?
This morning, I think you were sharing a data point. Is it 40,000 are the long-term services and supports eligible? Is that right? Okay. So, Dr. Burke, the 40,000 are those with nursing facility level of care. So they're on waiver in a nursing home. And they're the ones that are getting enhanced coordination of care. So we have, and do you want to talk real quick about the stratification?
Yeah, so one really exciting point about Pathways is that all members, so all 100,000 plus that will be in the program will be offered care coordination, meaning they'll be assigned a care coordinator who will be holistically coordinating their care. The member can opt out of that and say, I don't want that for whatever reason, and the MCE will honor that. But that means that they will receive an assessment. The care coordinator will act on the results of that assessment, and have regular touch bases with them. Service coordination, which we know now as case management, but is called service coordination in the Pathways future world, that is for those who meet nursing facility level of care. No matter if they are in a nursing home or they're in the home and community, they will be assigned a service coordinator. It looks a little bit different, right? If they're in a nursing home versus in the home and community, but then they will receive service coordination, which is, exactly how it sounds, really coordinating all of the services that that member needs. So that is for the 40,000 folks who do meet nursing facility level of care. Yeah.
Okay, now I've got a truck over here, but anyway, I hope you can hear me. So my next question is, how many people are on choice program as of today, and what percentage of those people historically have moved into nursing home level of care, which would be moving them into managed long-term services and supports? Do we have data on that?
Dr. Burke, I'm looking to Aaron to see if we have that data. So there's around 3,600 people on choice today. We don't have the data on hand regarding how many historically transitioned to nursing facility level of care. That is part of kind of a broader discussion that we're having internally on having more robust insight on choice participants and just having better access to data so we have a better understanding of the populations. But that should be information we can get some insight on, and we can pull that data and provide that to you all.
Okay, and now, thank you. And as I understand it, those people who would be on the choice program in the future here, when this rolls out in 2024, would be handed over to Maximus and then would have to enroll in MLTSS. And they get a I may not have care managers, service coordinator. I may not have all this right, but anyway, there'll be someone else working with them. Am I correct in that?
They transition to the A&D waiver. Then they would be assessed by Maximus for eligibility for the A&D waiver. And then at that time, if they chose to enroll in the A&D waiver instead of remaining solely on choice, then they would be transitioned into Pathways, yes.
Anybody else have questions? Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much. And we are happy to revisit and delve into different aspects of the broader comprehensive aging effort. Jim, so good to see you.
So I'm going to switch up our agenda a little bit and I'm going to kick it over to Kristen Laggy since she does need to leave here soon for an update.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here on our rainy afternoon. Thank you for jiggering the agenda. I have to leave a little before 4:30. And we know how these meetings usually go. So there's a couple things, a couple of different sections of things I want to address. We'll start with a federal update because this could eventually in different ways impact the area agencies on aging. First of all, the federal budget was passed for this fiscal year, this federal fiscal year. There was about an additional 220 million, give or take, assigned to the Older Americans Act. But a lot of it was put into nutrition to the detriment of what we call Title IIIB services, which are a lot of the services that Choice funds for people who are not Choice eligible, but Older Americans Act eligible. So that will be one of the emphases of our national policy agenda, is highlighting the importance of those Title IIIB services as we continue in appropriations moving forward. The other thing that might affect what's coming down to the Division of Aging and AAAs through the Older Americans Act is us having hit the debt ceiling at the federal level. And because we have a divided Congress, it's going to be harder to get legislation through that extends that ceiling. I heard on the news this morning, the government can do accounting tricks until about June before they really need to clamp down. So we may see some disruption in the future, but that'll affect a lot of people, not just area agencies on aging. Another big item is that nationally, and I would presume in Indiana, where they're finding that there's slow COVID-19 booster vaccine booster uptake. And as the result of that, the White House wanted to put out a ton of money to help and put it out to more community-based organizations to try to get more shots in arms. And so there was multi-millions allocated to the National Council on Aging and the U.S. Aging, which is the AAA Trade Association. U.S. Aging has about 79 million to divvy up nationally, and it's kind of a rolling application basis. So we may see some of our AAAs applying for that funding to extend vaccines. Finally, a lot of news came out in the fall related to Medicare Advantage plans and the devil that they seem to be in terms of how entities are operating them in terms of overcharging and fraud and unethical consumer kind of behavior or by the MCEs. And in response, the federal government has put out some new rules around that to be implemented in the 2024 programs. It's really important because more and more people are on Medicare Advantage plans. One of the documents that I put in your education packet was that the typical older adult had upwards of 70 combinations of plans available to them to try to sort through between regular Medicare and Medicare Advantage. And that's just overwhelming, not to mention nefarious or the kinds of things that happen that make it more difficult for consumers to make choices. So that's what's going on at the federal level. Let me talk a little bit about, you heard Allison's update, and we don't really have much to add at this point, other than a lot of what she shared about service coordination, et cetera, none of that is kind of new to us. It might be new to you, but there really wasn't anything surprising there. We do have a bill, however, to lengthen the requirement of the subcontracting of service coordinations from 2 years to the length of the contract and from 50% to 75%. And this is in recognition of the massive effort and undertaking it's going to be on both the managed care entity and service coordination entity side to get things rolling. And we just think it would be better if there was more of that longer term expectation. And there is an out for non-performance, which was something that Allison talked about, what would happen in the current contract after 2 years and things weren't going well. So we've got that out there and we'll continue to update on that as it moves forward. But related to session and related to this particular group, there is a little bit of good news on the choice budget front. We want to make it better news, but it's a starting point. And that is that in the governor's budget, there was a decrease in the amount that they're proposing to shift to Medicaid. And so yay, a decrease of about 5.5 million. It'll, give us like, I think it leaves us with 11 million or so that is still going over to Medicaid. We met as the AAA Association with the Ways and Means Chair on right before session started, and we're going to continue to advocate because given the waiting list in the state, not only for persons that are waiting for any choice service, we also have a not insignificant number of persons who are current choice clients that are not receiving all the services they need because there are limitations on the funding, as well as, so they might be receiving attendant care for, X hours a week, but they really need Y hours. Or there are services that some AAAs choose not to fund just because they're so expensive. So we could potentially expand the services that are eligible but not funded at the local level because of the funding limitations. And recall, we're really trying to position choice as a way to prevent people from declining to the much more expensive Medicaid eligibility. So we want to make choice as expansive and fully funded as possible, which is why we, of course, would say, let's, stop sending any money over for waiver match. And then maybe in subsequent years, we can work on the total allocation amount. So in your packets is the choice, the governor's language on the choice budget, as well as just some of the background information we shared with Representative Thompson's office. There are, thanks to the Alzheimer's Association, there's another bill out there that would also affect dementia care in the state and seeks to appropriate funding to provide each AAA with a dementia care specialist and to more fully support the state dementia care specialist coordinator position, the state employee position. And so we're grateful to the Alzheimer's Association for their interest in that. And we have worked on that with them for a while, and we'll continue to do that. We are having a legislative luncheon next Wednesday. You all are invited to attend, whether you're a legislator or not, because we certainly could use the advocacy assistance related to the choice budget. And we hope you would be willing to chip in on 396 as well. Finally, I did want to recognize the state and has worked with us on a couple different meetings. One related to the master plan on aging, which the state is moving forward with. And they had a good kickoff with the AAAs as well as a bunch of other state agencies. It's taking a broader look at planning around aging besides what happens in the state plan on aging. So the state plan on aging, it only really addresses the Older Americans Act funding, but we know we have a lot more to look at. We've got the Medicaid funding, we've got choice, et cetera. There was some work done to moving that forward, as well as stuff related to housing and pulling together, because we know in addition to direct support workers, housing is another linchpin to keep people at home. They have to have a home to be able to live in the home and home and community-based settings. And we brought together stakeholders, including state agencies, Division of Aging, Medicaid, et cetera, around what's happening in our state relating to housing for this population. Really meant to get everybody on the same page and catalyze some policy discussion. I don't think this was a direct result of that meeting, but there are a significant number of bills in the legislature that is addressing the housing crisis. Some of them specifically around more funding for affordable housing to develop affordable housing. Others addressing it from a property tax perspective and trying to limit property tax increases. So we'll keep you updated on that as the session moves forward. And I think I will stop there. Thank you. Happy to have any questions.
Thank you. And then Leslie and team, any Division of Aging updates?
I will keep it brief in the interest of everybody's time here. I know we moved the meeting to later in the afternoon this month. So just confirming the choice report was submitted to the General Assembly. So we got that finalized and submitted. And thank you all for those of you who offered comments after the really great discussion at the last meeting about the choice report. The only other thing I'll mention quickly is part of our 2023 goals regarding the choice program is, as I mentioned earlier, to really start gathering more robust data and a little more insight into choice participants. We're exploring things like setting up individual case study analyses, working with the AAAs and with our own data team on how we can start getting just a little more information on the services that are being provided and where the gaps exist as well. So hopefully we'll have some of that we'll be able to share in advance of next year's choice report and incorporate some of that data into the choice report as well. I think that's all I will share unless there's any questions on any of that or anything else for the Division of Aging or any last questions for the Medicaid team. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did have some good news to share too. So we have a deputy director in our Division of Aging now. So that position had been vacant for several months. And last month, Andrew Bean joined the Division of Aging as our deputy director. He previously served the role as a Medicare and Medicaid coordinator for the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. So he's got a really robust background on Medicare and Medicaid and dual eligible individuals in particular, which of course is of particular importance with the Pathways program as well, since around 80% of the folks that will be on Pathways are dually eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. So I'm really happy to have him joining our team. He joined last month, so has quickly jumped into lots of effort. So as you maybe working on things with the Division of Aging in the coming months, you may see his name pop up. So we're just happy to have him here.
Awesome. And before anybody leaves, we have a quorum. So do you guys have any discussion or questions about the minutes from our November 17th meeting? If not, can I have an approval? Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. Okay. Thank you. We have approved the November 17th minutes. Happy New Year, everybody. And I look forward to continuing working with you guys through 2023. Have a great day. We are adjourned.